Good morning, everyone. We look at the Acts of the Apostles today, chapter 7, and in it we find Stephen, who was one of the first deacons, but also the first martyr. And we find the dialogue and the situation that went on between the accusations against Stephen by the early church, the people living in the times of the early church, and also his stoning to death. Now, it's quite interesting that stoning seemed to be something that people tried to do to Jesus, and he always managed to elude them. And stoning seemed to be something that was used by mobs. In other words, it was a mob justice, what they call kangaroo courts, as they called them. There was no trial for Stephen. He was simply singled out for what he was doing, and he was told to renounce it, and he wouldn't. And so they picked up stones and they killed him. That's quite horrific. Just as I mentioned to you, today is not the feast of St. Stephen. The feast of St. Stephen is the day after Christmas, 26th of December. And he is, incidentally, the patron saint of deacons, for obvious reasons. But to look at John's Gospel, then Jesus is challenged, saying, "What sign will you give us?" And this is in John chapter 6. Remember, this is well before Jesus was judged and sentenced to death. "What sign will you give us?" And Jesus says to them, "I am the bread of life." That's a pretty tough one for them to accept. As time went on and things happened in the life of Jesus and in the life of the early church, then there was probably more realization of what that really meant to them. But we might sort of say, well, what sign will Jesus give us? And we do know that obviously in the Mass, we see the real sign, the real presence. But there are other things that happen in our lives which can help us to remember the presence of Jesus in our lives and the influence that he has. I know on a personal level, there's sometimes, and I've been backed into a corner, I say, "Lord, I really need help here. Please just, and I don't necessarily get the answer that I wanted, but I get an answer. And when you reflect back on it, it's actually a good answer and has seen you through difficult times. So we need to look for signs in our lives which will feed us spiritually, even if it's just the observation of the presence of the Lord in our lives. And we should nurture those signs. Let them grow. Have a wonderful day. Keep yourself safe. God bless. Bye-bye.